kicking
escaping.
and... Oh, okay.
I am getting out of the way.
Yeah.
I am, oh my God, I'm gonna die.
She was the face of 90s cool, sharp, magnetic, and impossible to ignore. Then, like a scene cut mid-frame, Bridget Fonda disappeared. No scandal, no farewell tour, just silence. For over a decade, not been a single interview, red carpet, or social post.
Bridget, everyone wants to know if you want to make a move back into Hollywood.
No.
Is there a chance?
No.
What could make someone walk away from a rising career and vanish so completely? Whispers followed her absence, and years later, a ringless hand in a blurry photo reignited everything. What really happened to Bridget Fonda? The truth isn't loud, but it is revealing. And it starts with one decision she never expected to make: inheriting more than fame. Bridget Fonda's entry into the world of acting was anything but ordinary. Born into the legendary Fonda family, she was the granddaughter of screen icon Henry Fonda and the daughter of Peter Fonda, a central figure of the 1960s counterculture cinema. Her aunt, Jane Fonda, was also a two-time Academy Award winner and an outspoken public figure. With a surname steeped in Hollywood prestige, Bridget didn't just inherit a legacy, she inherited an almost insurmountable standard. Before she even landed her first meaningful role, her path was shadowed by comparisons, expectations, and the constant implication that greatness was not just a possibility, it was an obligation. Peter Fonda himself once described his daughter's challenge as climbing Everest 5 times, once for each of the 3 famous Fondas who came before her, and twice for her own journey to distinguish herself. The metaphor was not just hyperbole. While other aspiring actors may enter the industry under the radar, Bridget walked into auditions and sets with the unspoken weight of a family history that had shaped American cinema. Whether critics wanted to or not, they measured her performances against those of her father and grandfather. It was a burden she did not choose, but one she was constantly expected to carry with grace. Though scant her gaze at the emotional baggage of stardom, Bridget confided in interviews that she fought with self-doubt and the perception that, due to her name, she must be great. Self-critical perhaps to the extreme, Bridget was never quite comfortable with fame, and she often questioned her abilities. Imposter syndrome played a large role in the early part of her career, not for lack of talent, but for feeling that she had to work double hard for proof that her standing was not due to nepotism. While other celebrity kids leaned into the family legacy, Bridget seemed to want to escape from its long shadow well, at least enough to be able to be considered an artist in her own right. This inner conflict was a shaper, too, of her choices and career decisions. Collectively or separately, she felt these roles fit emotionally complex contrasts with the avoidance of public spectacle, which for Bridget involved a method of restrained intensity and inwardness. Just as her legacy loomed largest, Bridget began proving she was more than just a famous last name. Bridget Fonda's rise in cinema. Bridget Fonda's rise in 1990s cinema marked a distinct chapter in her career, one where she began to step out from under the long shadow of her famous family and earn recognition on her own terms. After minor roles throughout the 1980s, she gained widespread attention with her appearance in The Godfather Part 3, 1990, where she played a brief but memorable role. Though not a breakout performance in itself, it placed her in a high-profile production that introduced her to a broader audience. The real breakthrough came in 1992, when she starred as the lead in Single White Female, a psychological thriller that showcased her ability to carry a major studio film. Her portrayal of a woman plagued by a dangerous roommate was both commercially successful and demonstrated a capacity for handling emotionally intense material. That same year, Fonda proved her versatility with a role in Cameron Crowe's Singles, a film that earned critical praise for capturing the ethos of Seattle's grunge scene. In contrast to the intensity of Single White Female, her performance in Singles was more understated, contributing to the film's ensemble dynamic while further highlighting her acting range. These two films, released within months of each other, positioned Fonda as both a credible dramatic actress and a commercially viable lead, something few young actresses had achieved at that time. Rather than rely on the Fonda name to build her career, she let her performances do the talking, appealing to both critics and moviegoers alike. The rest of the 1990s provided a glimpse of Fonda's growing reputation, as seen from her filmography. Among carefully chosen projects of success were The Point of No Return in 1993, which was an Americanized version of the French La Femme Nikita, and A Simple Plan in 1998, which cast her in one of her most highly regarded roles. Each time she created an interpretation different from the last, showing she could not be tied to any one particular genre or type. From there, she traversed smoothly into action, drama, and romantic comedy. Her wide-ranging appeal managed to keep audiences engrossed and critics respectful. With constant work in worthy films, her career fulfilled all the anticipation of A-list longevity. By the late 1990s, Bridget Fonda had successfully made a name for herself, away from her family. This star stature had also been earned by the body of work she had created. Fonda differentiates herself in the film industry from some offspring of famous parents, who often find it hard to carve a path separate from their parentage. Success shown here was also the product of good timing, versatility, and the unique ability to balance both artistic credibility and box office draw. Commercial career setbacks. As the 1990s drew to a close, Bridget Fonda's once promising career began to lose momentum. After a strong run of successful and varied performances throughout the decade, the tide turned with the release of Lake Placid in 1999. Marketed as a horror comedy, the film failed to meet both critical and commercial expectations. While it had a modest box office return, it fell short of recouping its budget domestically and was widely panned for its tone and execution. Critics were particularly harsh on Fonda's performance, with some citing a lack of depth and engagement in a role that required more charisma than it delivered. The reception marked a noticeable shift in how she was perceived in Hollywood, no longer as a reliable box office draw, but as an actress struggling to find the right projects. The situation worsened with the 2001 release of Monkey Bone, a visually ambitious but critically reviled hybrid of live action and animation. Starring opposite Brendan Fraser, Fonda played a supporting role in a film that proved to be one of the decade's most notorious box office bombs. Made on a budget of $75 million, Monkey Bone grossed less than $8 million, and its chaotic, unfocused tone was blamed for its failure. Though not solely responsible, Fonda's involvement in yet another flop further eroded her credibility in an industry that values commercial consistency. These two misfires, released in close succession, marked a turning point in how she was viewed by studios, producers, and audiences alike. After these consecutive setbacks, everything began to change for Fonda. She had gone from getting great leading roles in major films to being cast in lesser projects with limited releases and poor visibility. This change was not just a coincidental turn of fate. There was important market-related thinking attached to that shift from the Hollywood bigwigs, who had begun losing faith in her being marketable. By this time in the early 2000s, Hollywood was full of competition, and if a major actress met with a few failures, those few failures would jeopardize her leading lady status. For much of the 90s, Fonda had been careful about her image, so it was a little odd for someone like her, all of a sudden, to have declined opportunities for high visibility. Most certainly, her name was no longer a prime ticket for the cinema. Indeed, it was the turnaround that was witnessed this time that made it even more exceptional compared with her previously known glamorous success. Fonda had originally gained her reputation by deliberately making astonishingly challenging choices, but Lake Placid and Monkey Bone manifested the disparity between those roles and Fonda's actual strengths as a performer. Instead of elevating the material, she was perceived to be shriveling away under it, beat to a different rhythm as compared to the subject matter and style handed to her. Such errors were not totally indicative of her career, but they undoubtedly have opened a rather apparent unraveling of the professional momentum, later on turning her retirement from Hollywood to be less of a choice and more of an inevitability. Turning down Ali Mciel. One of the most pivotal moments in Bridget Fonda's career wasn't a film she acted in, but one she turned down. In the late 1990s, David E. Kelley, a powerhouse television creator, offered Fonda the lead role in a then-unknown legal dramedy called Ali Mciel. It was a major opportunity to headline what would become a cultural phenomenon, but Fonda ultimately chose not to audition or pursue the role. At the time, television was widely viewed as a step down for established film actors, and Fonda, coming off a decade of big-screen success, was still focused on maintaining her career in cinema. Her decision reflected a prevailing industry mindset, where the line between film and television was firmly drawn and rarely crossed. The role instead went to Callista Flockhart, whose portrayal of Ali Mciel made her a household name almost overnight. The show became a breakout success, earning multiple awards and generating water-cooler conversations across the country. Flockhart's quirky, emotionally layered performance gave the series a distinctive identity and proved that television could offer the same kind of artistic complexity as film. As the show soared, it became a clear example of how television was evolving and how actors who embraced the medium could thrive. Fonda's absence from this narrative inevitably drew comparisons, with critics and fans alike wondering what the series might have looked like had she taken the part. In later interviews, Fonda talked about the decision without defensiveness, displaying rare self-awareness. Instead of expressing regret, she said the role might not have been as effective with her in it. She acknowledged the importance of casting and seemed to honestly appreciate that the show found its perfect lead in Flockhart. Her comments were neither bitter nor envious, but reflective and grounded. This ability to judge her suitability for the part, even after the hit, added complexity to the way in which the moment would grow into memory. It did not seem like a misstep, but rather a calculated choice that, in hindsight, simply did not wear well. Yet, the impact of that no cannot fade away. Refusing to take on the role in Ali Mciel was a turning point for Fonda, one that might have led to redirecting her course had she opted to proceed. While her film career was becoming increasingly questionable, it seems that declining a major television project during an industry transition only limited her alternative options. The miss comes not out of a lack of foresight, but because the industry was changing right under her feet. A once justifiable choice was soon to go rogue with how television and her own career were headed. Bridget's move into television. After experiencing setbacks with high-profile flops like Lake Placid and Monkey Bone, Bridget Fonda attempted to recalibrate her career in the early 2000s. Her next move was Kiss of the Dragon, 2001, an action film co-starring Jet Li and produced by Luc Besson. The movie performed moderately well at the box office, especially compared to her recent projects, and allowed Fonda to step into a more international, action-oriented role. Around the same time, she appeared in The Whole Shebang, a lesser-known romantic comedy that leaned into her indie sensibilities. While the film didn't generate significant buzz, it reflected Fonda's attempt to reassert her range and regain momentum in a rapidly changing industry. Yet, even these projects failed to recapture the energy of her earlier work. As the film roles became less impactful, Fonda made a noticeable shift toward television, a medium she had previously avoided. Her decision to join Showtime's The Chris Isaak Show in a recurring role marked a break from her film-first strategy. The series was niche and musically driven, offering her a chance to engage with different material in a lower-pressure setting. This was followed by a starring role in Hallmark's The Snow Queen, a two-part fantasy miniseries that allowed her to play a lead once again, though within a very different scope than her past theatrical hits. However, the most impressive of those shows has demonstrated that Fonda was now in a position to adapt herself more willingly to change, and, it seemed, to reimagine her place entirely in the landscape of the entertainment. On the other hand, none of these recent roles could really measure against her earlier triumphs. The Chris Isaak Show boasted of a modest audience, but nary a culture of reach, and The Snow Queen opened her to the camera, but not on a very substantive basis in terms of critical or commercial measures. These projects did not, like her 1990s films, do much to further her credits or enlarge her audience. They suggested a diminishing return star, actress in transition, as it were, who's not quite ready to leave, but isn't quite the focus of Hollywood anymore. The beginning of Fonda's withdrawal from public life was her entry into television. Instead of big studios or being too aggressive around her comeback, she seemed to explore quieter modes of being, perhaps searching for the next creative rhythm or simply softening her exit from the spotlight. Those didn't fail for her, but signified a change in her ambition and presence in public. Audiences, insiders, and the world saw a change begin to suggest Bridget Fonda, that brilliant product of 90s cinema, finally starting to pull the curtain closed on her acting career. One choice deliberate, one choice quiet. Just as Bridget seemed to be easing into a quieter rhythm, fate delivered a jolt that would change everything. The 2003 car accident. In February 2003, Bridget Fonda's life took an unexpected and dramatic turn when she was involved in a serious car accident along California's Pacific Coast Highway. Driving alone in her Jaguar, she reportedly lost control on a rain-slicked road, causing the vehicle to veer off the side of an embankment. The crash resulted in significant spinal injuries, including the fracture of 2 vertebrae. Though she was fortunate to avoid permanent paralysis or life-threatening trauma, the incident was severe enough to warrant hospitalization and an extended period of recovery. The accident occurred at a time when Fonda was already at a crossroads in her career, amplifying the personal and professional impact of the event. At the time of the crash, Fonda had just been cast in a recurring role on The Practice, a critically acclaimed legal drama created by David E. Kelley. The part offered her a chance to re-enter the mainstream spotlight after a series of quieter roles and underwhelming projects. Given Kelley's successful track record, he had previously offered her Ali Mciel. This was seen as an opportunity for Fonda to re-establish herself in high-quality television. However, due to her injuries and the necessary physical recovery, she was forced to withdraw from the role before she could even appear on screen. What might have been a career reset instead became another closed door, this time not by choice. Though Fonda eventually healed from the bodily injuries that she suffered in the accident, it appeared to act as a sort of last straw for her already faltering career. Her previous career choices, the paths she took or was prevented from taking, were determined by the war zone dynamics of the industry, her own personal choice, or the misguided choice of opportunities. But this last crash was an external assault, an event that could not be controlled or evaded. So one thing affected was the momentum that was newly gathering around, reaching for a role. The other thing was the entire career aspiration. After at least some 30 years of being in the public eye, slowly dodging everything from Hollywood highs to lows, Fonda found herself stepping out, and not of some carefully planned exit, but because her body forced her to. In many ways, the 2003 car accident was the symbolic end of Bridget Fonda's acting career. It represented more than just a physical injury. It signified the moment when circumstances made the decision for her. There were no farewell interviews or staged retirement announcements, just a sudden, quiet exit from a profession she had navigated under intense scrutiny for over a decade. While she may have been contemplating a slower pace already, the accident left little room for indecision. It finalized what the industry had begun to suspect, that Bridget Fonda, one of the defining actresses of 90s cinema, was done with Hollywood, marriage and motherhood. In late 2003, following a turbulent year marked by a serious car accident and an abrupt pause in her career, Bridget Fonda married renowned composer Danny Elfman. The couple had reportedly met years earlier during the production of A Simple Plan, 1998, for which Elfman composed the score. While their relationship was kept largely out of the public eye, their marriage was one of the few events that signaled a definitive new chapter in Fonda's life. 2 years later, in 2005, the couple welcomed a son, Oliver. The arrival of their child coincided with Bridget's near-total retreat from Hollywood, and though she never made a formal statement about retiring from acting, her actions spoke volumes. Her life was shifting away from public life and toward private fulfillment. Motherhood appeared to reinforce what may have already been a growing desire for peace and normalcy. In contrast to the chaos and constant visibility of the entertainment industry, family life offered Fonda a sense of grounding. After years of working in an industry defined by exposure and scrutiny, her transition into the roles of wife and mother seemed to suit her quiet nature. Unlike many celebrities who balance parenting with ongoing work in the spotlight, Fonda chose a different route, one that placed her family at the center and put her career entirely on hold. Her decision to retreat wasn't framed by scandal or failure. It was a quiet, personal choice to prioritize well-being over fame. Bridget Fonda never revealed any wish to return to acting after she became a mother. Some stars have returned to acting after raising their children or even during the parenting years, but Fonda kept her distance. There were no cameos, no interviews, no teases of a return. Her absence from the public eye was not ambiguous. It was consistent. It was complete. This extended silence not only deepened the mystery of her disappearance, but also provided emphasis on the importance of her commitment to her new life. By not making noise about it, Fonda stepped out of the media frenzy that usually surrounds the stars who have come back on the market. Bridget Fonda's retreat from Hollywood was not the sudden disappearance that people made it out to be. Rather, it had been a gradual weaving out that had been influenced by the reality of life. For someone who worked for 10 years under the shadow of fame and family legacy, she seems to have found happiness away from the limelight. Her marriage to Elfman and the birth of their son represented, for her, the clear pivot from ambition to domestic security. In putting family before her career, Fonda changed the terms of her own narrative, and, in doing so, challenged the notion that stepping away from success equates to failure. This, to Fonda, could be the most genuine affirmation of control she ever exerted over her life. Life off the grid. Between 2009 and 2022, Bridget Fonda became one of Hollywood's most enigmatic figures, not because of any scandal or controversy, but due to her near-total withdrawal from public life. After years of appearing on red carpets, in magazine spreads, and on movie screens, she vanished from the public eye with a quiet finality. She stopped attending industry events, avoided interviews, and was absent even from gatherings related to her famous family. She made no attempt to engage with social media, never issued statements to explain her absence, and chose not to participate in the celebrity culture that continued to evolve around her. For over a decade, there was no trace of her in the media landscape, leading many to wonder if she had retired, relocated, or simply chosen to live anonymously. During this extended silence, fans and the press speculated about her whereabouts and reasons for disappearing. Various theories circulated, from personal health issues to a growing distaste for the entertainment industry, but none were substantiated, as Fonda herself remained silent. Her absence only intensified curiosity. The fact that she had left Hollywood during an era when many actors were transitioning to new platforms, streaming services, social media influence, brand partnerships, made her withdrawal even more striking. At a time when most former stars found new ways to stay visible, Fonda was pursuing the opposite with remarkable discipline. Her choice not to clarify or counter the speculation only deepened the mystery. Instead, events in which her presence would have been called for were those most telling in deciding her absence. Public film premieres or awards ceremonies had the same lack of attendance from her as did public memorials for family members for her father Peter Fonda's death, for example, in 2019. The Fonda family had made a statement after Peter's passing, and, interestingly, Bridget's voice was absent. It seemed her grieving occurred privately rather than publicly. Not just avoidance of personal reasons, but part of an overall shift in her lifestyle that embraced total withdrawal from the entertainment industry and its surrounding media apparatus. Her avoidance extended beyond personal reasons. Rumble viewership even became so consistent and entire that he would later be classified by fans and journalists as possibly the most thoroughly vanished stars of this era. This lengthy notch off the screen made Bridget Fonda, until then, a face well known to us all, a semi-mythic figure in pop culture. While celebrities may fade slowly from the limelight only to sporadically resurface, Fonda simply chose to disappear, never to explain why. Her name became associated with voluntary exile. She became the subject of articles and internet discussions by fans naming stars who walked completely away from the spotlight. By doing this, she literally stepped off Hollywood's public stage and redefined the conversation around fame, privacy, and self-determination in the age of visibility. Danny Elfman's legal controversies. Bridget Fonda's years of silence were momentarily disrupted not by her own actions, but by those of her husband, composer Danny Elfman. In 2018, it was revealed that Elfman had reached an $830,000 settlement with pianist Nomi Abedi, who had accused him of exposing himself to her multiple times during their working relationship. Though the case was settled quietly and with no admission of wrongdoing, the disclosure drew media attention due to Elfman's high-profile status in the music and film industries. As news of the settlement circulated in entertainment and news outlets, Fonda's name was inevitably pulled back into public discourse, not because she was directly involved, but because of her connection to the man at the center of the controversy. The situation escalated in 2023 when a second allegation surfaced, this time from an anonymous woman who claimed that Elfman had engaged in misconduct between 1997 and 2002. Elfman strongly denied the allegations, calling them baseless and absurd, and one of the lawsuits was later dismissed. Still, the re-emergence of his name in legal and tabloid headlines brought renewed scrutiny to Fonda, who had long stayed out of the limelight. Despite being uninvolved in the legal matters themselves, The media were quick to highlight her continued absence and silence. Her name began trending on social platforms once again, not for a return to acting or an interview, but because of questions about her relationship and public stance. The absence of a public comment or appearance made by Fonda within the context of the controversies further thickened the air with intrigue, where she had already created a thick aura of mystery around her. A name that had been avoided so deliberately from fame had taken worrying turns to resurface in the most scandalous possible contexts. There was no official statement from her, nor any public appearance alongside Elfman. Not even a shadow of damage control. What she managed to maintain during a time of expectancy about some reaction only increased public curiosity. Was she living apart from the situation, or was she standing by her husband? With nothing concretely to go on, speculation became the order of the day. Just as headlines swirled around her in absentia, a quiet reappearance added fuel to the curiosity she never tried to satisfy. Sightings and speculation. After more than a decade of total privacy, Bridget Fonda unexpectedly returned to public view in 2022, when paparazzi captured candid photos of her in Los Angeles. These images marked her first public appearance since 2009, and the response was immediate. Social media buzzed, headlines resurfaced, and fans speculated about her health, lifestyle, and whether she had any plans to return to acting. Her appearance had changed with time, as expected, but it was the very act of being seen again that reignited fascination. For someone who had so carefully and thoroughly removed herself from celebrity culture, even a simple errand run became headline news. Fonda, once a staple of red carpets and movie premieres, had returned to public consciousness not through a film or interview, but by simply existing in a public space. The intrigue only deepened in 2024 when she was again spotted, this time noticeably without her wedding ring. Given her long-standing marriage to composer Danny Elfman, the missing ring immediately sparked rumors of a possible separation or marital troubles. Gossip columns and online forums speculated on the state of their relationship, especially in the wake of the legal controversies surrounding Elfman in recent years. Fonda, who has never engaged in public statements or social media clarifications, offered no comment. Her silence only fueled the narrative, as people attempted to read into body language, fashion choices, and the ring's absence as indicators of deeper personal developments. It was in the spring of 2025 that Bridget and Elfman were spotted together once again, this time visibly under construction on their Los Angeles site. In those pictures, Bridget was again wearing her wedding band, thus thoroughly squashing any suspicion of a divorce. The occasion was highly significant. Not only did it reconfirm their relationship status, but more importantly, it was their first public outing as a couple since 2009. Fans and the media alike noted that Fonda was appearing outside her front door, indicating, though only slightly, that the actress might not be too unreachable. One theory was thus momentarily reset from the previous year about her life behind the scenes by her presence with Elfman, which suggested relative stability in the maelstrom of speculation that followed in the preceding year. If you found Bridget Fonda's story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories. And if you're still curious, click the next video on your screen. We think you'll love it. Thanks for watching.